Welcome, folks. It is Thursday, the 28th day of July, 2011, and this special live InfoWars special report is going into its second hour this evening. And from time to time, I'll be doing these special reports at prisonplanet.tv, but starting September 1st, we'll have a 30-minute news program every evening that's going to be highly produced. This is really just a beta test in here for live special reports that we'll also be doing. And I'm glad on our maiden voyage here, as we work out some of the bugs and things, that we had the health ranger Mike Adams with us in the last hour. And now in the next 45 minutes or so, or as long as he wants to stay, he's been working hard all day. He was already on my radio show for an hour and a half today. We have Sheriff Richard Mack, and most folks, of course, know who he is, but he was the guy that shot down the Brady bill as unconstitutional, took it all the way to the Supreme Court and won. And of course, he's a best-selling author and a great fighter for liberty, what you'd call the proto-Tea Party. You know, the real folks that were right about everything that's now happened in America, and who are true constitutionalists, not fake Republicans or Democrats. And Sheriff Richard Mack is here with us, and his important message is reaching out to the police, reaching out to military, and reminding them of their oath. Because, hey, if you don't follow the Bill of Rights and Constitution, you might as well be like the corrupt police in Guatemala or North Korea or China or what we've seen in Russia or Eastern Germany. The examples are replete. And before I get into Operation Fast and Furious and Court Site and all the things that are going on and try to sit here and shut up, because everything he's going to say is going to make 1,000 things explode in my mind, but that's why folks watch. I don't need a teleprompter. I need to be hit on the head with a hammer to shut up. Before we get there, I want to get to, well, first, thank you for being here, Sheriff.
Oh, okay, Alex. Thanks for having me.
And welcome to Texas.
Hey.
It's like the gathering here.
Been here 2 months, and already I'm a Alamo Texan.
Well, we're going to talk about what that means in a moment. But before we go there, I wanted to raise this issue in my little police state stack here. I saw an article today that says Chinese riot after killing a fruit vendor. This is the Financial Times of London. And this disabled 52-year-old Ding Quago died when the code enforcer police beat him to death in front of everyone for no reason. And in China, every day now, they have giant riots when the police act like Chinese communist thugs. The Chinese riot and attack police stations, and in many cases kill everybody inside now. They weren't doing this 10 years ago. They don't have big Tiananmen squares down in the square. They just go crazy. Then I saw a new video that I'm not even going to air here. It's too horrible. The Daily Mail reported out of California. Caught on tape. Police beat and taser gentle, mentally ill homeless man to death. And they've got video of it, and they reported he was very gentle, very nice, but schizophrenic. And there'd been they thought somebody messing with cars. Turned out it wasn't him. Yeah. But when they came over and tackled him, they tasered him 6 times and beat him to death. And if you look at the photo of him, it took him a couple days to die. I mean, he looked like he was run over by a Mack truck, no pun intended. And again, my job is not just to sit here and bash cops. They make mistakes. They got a tough job. But the difference is that why would Chinese riot and take over a whole city of 30,000 and take over the police station over seeing somebody beaten to death? And here in America, we lie down and take it and see it as almost pro-police, right, that we see so many crazy examples of them beating people up that are videotaping them. Right. What's happening? What's the difference between a peace officer and a guardian of the republic and these enforcers? And what's your comment on this latest story?
Well, I think it's simply a result and an indication of the training that we receive in this country now at the police academies and within the police departments themselves and the sheriff's offices. It's a them against us mentality, and the police are trained. Safety tactics. You go home tonight. The most important thing after your 8-hour or 10-hour shift, you go home, and you make sure that you're on guard, that your gun belt is ready, the strap off your gun is undone, and you're ready to go. Make sure you're able to defend yourself. And it's just overdone, Alex. It's just way overdone. And just like the SWAT team mentality altogether, it's overdone. I mean, we actually have the Department of Education that calls in a SWAT team to go after a family and goes in and raids a family with a SWAT team in Stockton, California.
Outside of their jurisdiction.
Outside of their jurisdiction.
No warrant.
Yeah, and when they do that, my thing is, my message to everyone in this country is that there is a solution to this police state SWAT team mentality that's going on in our country. And it is, one, return to the basic fundamentals of our Constitution. You cannot have, I read a book, and I can't remember who it was. It was on community policing, which is supposed to be an oxymoron because that's what we're doing anyway. But the problem with it is, he said, the problem with policing in America is we're being patrolled and policed by strangers. Now you take that to the next level. These guys aren't strangers anymore. They're police state officers. And that is the mentality that is going on in this country. And my warning is to every sheriff and chief of police and peace officer. You have to know the difference between a peace officer and an officer of the state. And when we return to those basic fundamental principles that sheriffs were established for in the first place, to be the peacekeeper, then we will return to freedom. And that the most important thing that your sheriff can do is to protect you from the tyrant. And he actually interposes himself on behalf of the people. And so we can stop this. For instance, the Stockton, California raid. The lady who was the suspect, who wasn't, what crime did she commit? She didn't pay back her student loan.
And we don't have debtor prisons in this country. That's a civil matter.
I know, it's a civil matter. I keep saying that to people. Why don't they listen? But
it's a power grab.
They go in, and she's not even there. So obviously they haven't done their homework. She hasn't been there for a long time. Hasn't even lived there. And so her husband gets raided. And he gets handcuffed and thrown out in the heat and sits in a patrol car for 6 hours. They kick in the door. They don't even offer to fix that. They tape it. They tape over where they kicked it in. And they said everything's fine. That guy should be suing for all sorts of
Well, it's a message.
But
pay this money even though we're in a depression. It was Thomas Jefferson said that when the government fears the people, there is liberty. When the people fear the government, there is tyranny.
No, that's what we have today. You have what you have today. You know, you don't even need to say tyranny, you know, but the thing of it is, if we're going to stop that Stockton, California raid, the sheriff should have gone to them right then, that day, and said, I didn't know you guys were coming in here, and if you ever come into my county and pull that crap again, you're going to go to jail, and I'll be the one doing it.
Well, there's a good thing, Sheriff Mack, that you're out there with your book educating the sheriffs about their proper role as, you know, the head constitutional officer in a county under state law and educating the public, because you're on one end trying to restore the republic. The establishment, as you know, and I want you to talk about this, all over the country is moving to get rid of sheriffs being elected. We're going to get to that. But also we see these power grabs. Just 10 years ago, not even 20, it was well known that feds had to get permission, the FBI, to come into a county or a city. But now they've built these law enforcement centers. The feds come in with money. They build the threat fusion centers, and the feds are the boss there with the police chief and the detectives, and they all go to lunch together, and now they're just auxiliary federal officers. In many cases, they're deputized. They've deputized sheriff's deputies under the ATF grant in the schools, asking what kind of guns do mommy and daddy have. I mean, this is a scientific takeover. So can you speak to the program to get rid of the sheriff as an elected position, to cut the people off from that and really complete our journey into corruption and despotism? Because as you know, as yourself has said, as Stuart Rhodes has said, Jack McClam, so many others, Sheriff Mack, that tyranny will come to your door in a uniform.
It will. And all of the horrible incidents that have happened in our country in the last 20, 30, 40 years, Ruby Ridge, Kent State massacres, Waco, and they go on and on. And we can even go back in every one of my presentations.
The Waco sheriff said he wished he would have done his duty.
Exactly, yeah. You can even go back, I like to use the analogy of Rosa Parks. You see, Rosa Parks got arrested, an American citizen arrested because she didn't give her seat to a white man. And now she's been honored in the year 2000, she was honored by Congress. Do they know why she was honored? She broke the law. And she stood against stupid laws, and that's exactly what we should all be doing. Now, she went to jail that day from two people wearing a badge who swore an oath in God's name to uphold and defend the Constitution. Well, I want every sheriff And that's what I ask in this book, The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. I ask every sheriff, will you stand against that kind of abuse? You see, there was no heroes at Ruby Ridge. There was no heroes at Waco. There were no heroes at Kent State. There were no heroes at the Rosa Parks bus problem. She was hauled off to jail. Ask every sheriff in this country, ask every peace officer in this country, if you were called back into time, or through time, to that bus on December 1st, 1955, and you as a peace officer or you as a sheriff or a deputy sheriff were called to take care of that incident, knowing what we know now about freedom and fairness and equality and our constitutional republic, if you were to get on that bus, what would you do? Are you going to arrest her? I've had actually a few cops tell me they would, because all the laws have to be enforced. That's the mentality I'm fighting. That's the thing my books are fighting, and that's the thing I've stood against for since I've been in law enforcement.
Well, I mean,
20 years.
Exactly. I mean, as the founders stated, and as the Constitution states, and as the juries and grand juries are set up, juries and grand juries aren't supposed to be kept creatures of the prosecutor or
even creatures of the judge.
And creatures of the judge. They're supposed to judge the law as well as the facts. That's another check and balance of the people. If the corrupt system's doing something wrong, or they don't think the law is right, that is the check. It's not just the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. And the sheriff is another elected person who's the guardian.
And state sovereignty is the other branch. In fact, the Supreme Court decision, now this is the Supreme Court decision. This is how small it is. You have a pocket constitution that you can keep this with. Everybody carries a pocket constitution. The other most valuable tool you should have the victory for state sovereignty. This proves what you're saying, that there's a legislative branch, there's the executive branch, and there's the judicial branch. And then Scalia actually says that state sovereignty is the other check and balance that should be applied and should be used in this country. And that's why it's so important that you put the sheriff with the principle of state sovereignty, and he will then know and understand his duty, his responsibility to stand against the tyranny of the federal government.
Well, I want to go back to these military men and
let's go back to your other question.
Because we heard a police officer. Well, sure, go ahead and finish your point.
What has happened to the sheriffs?
Yes.
What is the move nationwide? Well, first, two of the mistakes that the most recent states coming into the Union made was Hawaii and Alaska. They did not establish sheriffs in those two states. There's none. There's no sheriffs. Then, another huge mistake about 10 years ago, the state of Connecticut actually voted away all the sheriffs. And I think there was only about 9 sheriffs in the state of Connecticut. They voted them out, just got rid of them. Why would you want to do that? Why would the state? And do you know who went out there and campaigned and lobbied and testified before the Connecticut legislature to stop that idiocy? Our own Joe Arpaio, Sheriff Arpaio from Phoenix. He went out there to tell them the biggest mistake you can make is get rid of your sheriff. The second mistake you can make is to appoint your sheriff. The sheriff should remain accountable to the voters.
Well, that's what's crazy is we have cities that are just incorporated under state law. The county is above it in the chain in state government.
It stays out of the corporation.
Well, that's ass backwards is my point.
Exactly.
And I hate to use that term, but that's what it is.
It is.
To have the feds coming in and lobbying to have the sheriff gotten rid of. I mean, that is a direct attack at the heart of the cellular level of the state, the county. But going back to the big issue of what you raised about Rosa Parks, I think that's one of the strongest points I've ever heard you make, and that you've talked to police that would arrest her today if ordered to do so. That goes back to the Nuremberg trials, where the Nazis came up and said, we were ordered to do this.
We were just following orders.
And that's how it works. First, they ask you to follow orders that are a little unconstitutional. Because they had a similar constitution in the Weimar Republic.
Right.
In fact, in some cases, they even was built off ours. It was even more expansive in some areas with rights. Yeah. But over time, they eroded it, and pretty soon, the sky was the limit, and those guys were hung. And so saying, I just followed orders, hey, I'm just doing my job. Well, hey, buddy, you swear an oath to protect and defend the Constitution from enemies.
Exactly my point.
And I don't know if you've seen my film Road to Tyranny, but it has a squad car video in Virginia of a naval veteran, no criminal record, pulled over. They find a pocket constitution in the trunk at a checkpoint. They arrest her, and the 2 state police officers start getting scared. and it's just a mainline Constitution, and they act like they found a 100-foot rattlesnake, and they go, my God, I can't believe we got one of them. These guys swear an oath to this, but because they found one of my videos, but the Pocket Constitution is what really scared them, and they found a Patriot Games VHS tape, because this was back in 2000, Abby Newman, they found a Patriot Games VHS tape.
No, I was involved with Abby Newman. I went out to testify her trial. And but
it also scared him, the word patriot, that I'm trying to think of his name, Harrison Ford. Yeah. That's even evil now.
Right.
I mean, the word patriot scared him. What was wrong with those state police officers?
Again, training. They've been trained. You know, during the radio show today, we were talking about posse comitatus, and we talked to Josh, the officer in the Army, I think it was.
He said, yeah, we're going to use foreign troops in America.
Yeah, he was a Marine. And the mentality of that really scared me. And you're talking about it here again. It's being exemplified by the brainwashing that law enforcement have had throughout the past 30 or 40 years. Now, when I first started as a rookie, we had training about these so-called right-wing groups. Well, I was trained. I went to police training that said posse comitatus. Didn't say anything about it being a law passed back in, 1890, that didn't allow the military to be used for domestic purposes. I wasn't trained to that. I was told that posse comitatus was a group of right-wing radicals that were dangerous, armed to the hilt, that would kill cops if you tried to stop them for a traffic citation.
And that's why when people say, why is the Army at a checkpoint, posse comitatus, they flip out.
Yeah. And as soon as you use the term posse comitatus, then these cops are going to think, what is the matter with you? And then you explain to them that is a federal law that prohibits the Marines or any other branch of the Army or military being used in domestic
And now we
regions.
see that was my next issue, and I could see the Mack Homeland Security reports that good peace officers, federal and state, sent me, that the training has nothing to do with Al-Qaeda. It is all Ron Paul supporters, gun owners, people that have films about the Constitution, people that want to get rid of the private Federal Reserve, which is the foreign banking cartel that runs the country, and that's wrecking the nation, that stole $27 trillion, we now learn, and won't tell Congress where the money went. And so now I knew they were going to mainline that, and now they are. Oh, the white terrorists, they're going to get you. There's going to be new OKCs. And you research those, you find out those are false flag events. And now Jackson Lee says, let's have a hearing on right-wing extremist ideologues. And so
the Congresswoman.
Yes.
Yeah. She's wanting to drag all of that into a congressional hearing. Why? I thought she stood for civil rights. You know, I thought we already broke away from this crap that government has to watch.
Well, that's
over
what
me.
it is. When libertarians and constitutionalists and conservatives want the Constitution, they just say, well, you don't want government health care, you're racist. They throw that in so that liberals don't wake up and come defend the Republic as well.
Right. And I still maintain that, and I really thought the time you spent with Mike Adams was extremely valuable. And some of the things there that he talked about, I've been involved with. For instance, going and drinking milk. I hate milk. I'm not kidding you, I hate milk. But I went all the way to Madison, Wisconsin from Arizona to drink raw milk with a couple of Amish farmers at the state capitol in Madison, Wisconsin.
That's extreme.
It is extreme, yeah.
That's almost as bad as that lady in Oak Park, Michigan with the garden. And the 93 days in jail.
Who the hell does she think she is? And
well, these people are extremists.
Oh, I know.
But thank goodness Jackson Lee, the congresswoman,
wants to put us all in a congressional hearing.
Well, she cares. I mean,
yeah, well, of course she cares. And so I did. And we challenged the police because they had already raided both of these guys, destroyed their farms, destroyed hundreds of thousands of worth of food, real good food. And they're just providing this product to people who want it, who don't believe in pasteurized milk. And they don't want their cheese burned and ruined and all the enzymes and vitamins destroyed before they feed it to their family. And so they go to Vernon Hershberger and Max Kane. These were the two guys I drank with. And you can go to my website and you'll see that picture with me drinking this, folks, on the state capitol.
I want a disclaimer right now. I'm an extremist, but not as evil as this guy. He actually drank milk with Amish. Hey, we need...
That's good, Alex.
Now, your blood wasn't more than 1 part per million. I mean, What's the milk blood level allowable before you go to jail?
I think it's .08.
Yeah. So let me tell you, you joke about it. It's not funny.
It's not.
That's
funny.
a hardcore drug.
These two guys though are the salty earth people, and Vernon Hershberger and his 8 or 9 kids and his beautiful wife.
Oh, dangerous.
You know, they were there with us. All of his kids were there on the state capitol, and after we drank that illegal milk, is this so crazy?
Listen, they used to sell unpasteurized milk out here at the farmer's market, but they had secret police out there. And here's the deal. It's not illegal to, even up until the 50s and early 60s, that was the milkman, and dairies were decentralized because it had to be fresh. It lasted for a week. It was live. The doctor said if you're sick, drink raw milk. For those that don't know, pasteurization, they boil it. That's what causes turns it into a bad cholesterol. I've talked to the doctors and others. But because they wanted to be able to sell rotten milk in overworked cows that had blood and pus in their udders, and because with raw milk, if you get anything contaminated, you got to dump it out. So I mean, this is what we were brought up on. But they slowly brought in the pasteurized, and then got laws passed to shut it down. So it's another example. And now, you can't have a garden. Now you can't have, now the government's got laws. You can't have a label of something, they don't have to tell you if it isn't organic. This is incredible.
But that's my entire point. And listening to Mike Adams and then listening to Josh on the phone with us today on the radio show, are we totally insane? I mean, have we lost every bit of direction that we were supposed to take in this country? This is America. And we're going after, well, first of all, the federal government has shut off the water in the Napa Valley, reinforcing what Mike said about destroying the food supply in this country. They did it to Klamath Falls back in 2001. That was under the Bush administration. Now the Obama administration has done it.
They're setting the precedent to do whatever they want.
Exactly. And ultimately, that's what Obamacare tells every American citizen. And I'm here to tell you that there's a way to stop it. And our lawsuit actually says how we can stop Obamacare. The victory for state sovereignty. And this is the synopsis of my Supreme Court victory. You can see what this did for America, what this did for freedom, what it did for state sovereignty, and how you can implement this in your own neighborhood. Let me read one quote. This is Justice Scalia, the United States Supreme Court, in June 27, 1997, and it says...
Oh, wait, luckily this is not an FCC show.
No,
so
thank goodness.
This is internet only, so we're allowed to have profanity here on air. First off, because, again, the police freak out when they see a Constitution. A Supreme Court justice in a modern age quoting it.
This is just a Supreme Court. This is the decision.
Are you sure we can do this on air?
The Supreme Court.
This is almost as bad as raw milk.
Yeah, you're right. It is. It is. And let's not leave the raw milk thing behind either, because those guys are great. We have held, this is the United States Supreme Court talking to the American people and to the White House and to Congress. We have held, however, that state legislatures are not subject to federal direction. Well, don't you wish your state legislature knew this? This was the United States Supreme Court.
Why do we even have a states if they're not?
Exactly.
But, I mean, before 1913, the legislatures elected the federal senator.
Yeah.
That shows you the states are the boss. They're not co-equal. Right. First they teach you the states aren't the boss, then they're co-equal, and now there's no reason to even have states, we're told. And now Obama says no reason to have a Congress for EPA rules, wars.
Right. We are not Arizona. Arizona has no right to call itself Arizona. It is federal enclave number 47. Arizona was the 47th state. Arizona is 85% owned and controlled and managed by the federal government. And I know the Arizonans are really backward and they're a bunch of rednecks, but I guarantee you two things. I know Arizona can run their own dadgum Grand Canyon, and they can certainly run their own education without the federal government.
Well, that's the issue. The feds are now buying up land in states that are mainly privately owned, like Texas, with our tax money. And instead of all those western lands were supposed to be divided up against with the people. Continuing, since you mentioned health care, and then we'll get back into that. Okay. London Independent, cataracts, hips, knees, and tonsils. National Health Service begins rationing operations. Here, Bill Gates has come out and said these are death panels, that his foundation helped get it in there, and that the feds will decide what procedures doctors can give you. And he said, don't give granny treatment, we'll hire 10 teachers. So playing us off against each other. Once they socialize everything, then, oh, well, we don't agree with your diet, you've got to pay more, or you don't get treatment. But I've watched the House of Lords, even when Tony Blair was there, before Gordon Brown and Cameron, and he would admit, they have, in one case, a form of brain cancer, almost 100% operable if it's done within a month. And he admitted, yes, we make you wait 18 months. It's a death sentence. It's eugenics. But here's the London Independent. Hip replacements, cataract surgery, and tonsil removal are among operations now being rationed in a bid to save the NHS money. This is how it always works with socialism.
Well, the socialist structure does have that. I mean, there's no question about that. And that's why they want to socialize and nationalize health care in America.
And now you're beholden not just for your food stamps or for your Social Security, for your health care.
But for your tonsillectomy.
And if you don't go deeper into debt to the international bankers, oh, we're going to hold off on your health care as well.
And everything that I've ever heard you talk about at Santa Cruz, California, when we were there with Joe Bannister, great meeting, jam-packed with people from all over California. Everything I've heard you say on your shows and of the tapes that I've seen, you did one that I was involved with, like I said, back when Abby Newman thing and the police state video that you did pursuant to that and a lot of other things going on in America. There is nothing, again, this little tool, 50-page book, there is nothing that the UN or the New World Order or the federal government and all of its corruption that are trying to shove down our otherwise healthy throats that we cannot stop at the county level, that we cannot stop with a true constitutional sheriff who knows and understands his duty to protect his people.
We've run up the white flag. We're not occupying the land. We're just saying all the crooks in the county, let them run it. But then when good people do try to actually root out the corruption, a court side happens, but that's fine. We've got to draw the tyrants out and let people see their corruption so that it's evident.
Yeah, there's people still telling me today. I even have a sheriff out in Washington. I went there. I've been to Wisconsin and Washington State, not D.C., Washington State, to help a family, again, rated by the FDA, to have them stop dealing that horrible raw cheese and raw milk. And this farm, rather a very small one actually, they went and destroyed about $300,000 worth of product. Wouldn't let the poor eat it. They were sending these products to the most plush restaurants all over the country.
No, I know.
Yeah. People loved it.
Raw cheese at Whole Foods is 3 times more.
Yeah, and they love it.
By the way, it's real cheese.
Yeah, correct.
That pasteurized stuff isn't even cheese.
Correct. And so the sheriff there, I went and met with him, and I'm with the victims of this FDA raid. And I said, you know what, Sheriff, if you'd read this, if you take the time to read my case and to read the book, I think you'll find that you actually do have the responsibility to protect these people from those types of raids. What are they doing? Exercising what the Declaration of Independence says, their pursuit of happiness. They are doing this with their family. They have 6 adopted kids, and they're all running this farm together, working together as a family. Wonderful kids.
Working together as Al-Qaeda.
Yeah. And they just want to make a living, and they're doing it. And who shuts them down? Who destroys their food? But our own federal government. Now, this case says over and over, and this book documents it and puts it all into perspective.
And what did the sheriff say?
And he said, you think government's tyrannical. I don't. He was a Josh. Remember our Josh that we talked to this morning? He was another Josh, the Marine that we talked to this morning.
Yeah. They let us eat salmon that's part insect. They let us eat crops that are killing honeybees. Yeah. You know, that have been proven to be giving us cancer. I mean, that's mainline news. GMO crops causing infertility, cancer, and won't let us have it labeled. Yeah. But then real cheese that you taste it. If it's sour, it's not good.
Right.
It's much. They pasteurize it so they can feed you rotten crap.
Correct.
They radiate food so they can feed you rotten crud. They legalize all the poison. And then obviously if a cheese company ever had bad cheese, or if you ever shipped bad lobsters one time, you'd be out of business.
You're out.
The free market does that. Instead, big agribusiness, I've seen cases where Tyson Chicken, it was even the Associated Press, had thousands of violations at one plant. Their smaller competitor had one little violation and was shut down. and it's Big Agra writing all this. And so,
Yeah.
and so that sheriff needs to be thrown out.
Well, he does. And so at the end of our meeting, I gave him my book, and he was tossing them aside and all this. And I said, if you would just take a few minutes to look at that, you'll see that the U.S. Supreme Court agrees with me what I've put out here. 7 sheriffs in this country filed this lawsuit with me. I was the first to file in 1994. Sheriff Prince was second. He and I end up at the Supreme Court together because he and I were in the same
And
circuit.
you won. This is the law. This is America.
We won.
And he disrespects you, somebody who went to the Supreme Court with a landmark decision. You have the ruling, and he says, I choose to say it's not tyrannical. You've been proven right in the courts and in common sense, and he just says, it's just like that.
However,
it's just like Josh today.
Right.
When we said, there's foreign troops trying to come into America. And he said, yeah, I'm for the military being on the streets. Yeah. And I said, but the law, but the founding fathers were, and see.
And did he care about posse comitatus?
No.
Not one iota. Not one.
You were going to say something about the case.
Yeah, okay. Well, the sheriff, the bottom line with that, I said, Sheriff, let me do this. Why don't you call the U.S. Attorney's Office that allowed this raid to go on in these good people's home and at their farm? And why don't you call them and ask them what it was for and tell them not to do it again unless you're involved. Or tell them even go one step further. Just tell them you want this family left alone. And I said, you want me to tell you right now what will happen? They'll leave this family alone. All you have to do is call them and talk to them about it and tell them you wish that this family, that these people will be left alone. And I said, I'll bet you they will. He did it. He called them, and it happened.
So he was kind of afraid and said, oh, you think they're tyrannical, but he finally exercised his authority.
Just to kind of get rid of us.
Grand juries are kept now. Juries are kept. Sheriffs are kept. State legislatures are kept. It's about waking up out of the trance and saying, why do we have states? Why do we have sheriffs?
Yeah. Why do we have counties? If we're just puppets, and in this case, actually, Scalia, who wrote this decision, actually uses that terminology.
Read some of it.
All right. Scalia goes, this guy's pretty funny. States are not puppets of a ventriloquist Congress. You see, we're not their puppets. We're not their pawns. We're not their little redcoats. They do not own us. They cannot tell us what to do. And what this case says, Alex, and that's why I'm really glad to be on your program, because so many people can get this, because they understand and want to understand the Constitution, is that he's actually telling us in this case that the federal government is not our boss.
But if we roll over to tyranny, then we're conquered.
Yeah, we are. If we let them enslave us, then they're the boss.
So at the end of the day, look in the mirror, and they know you're waking up now. They know you're waking up now, right. So that's why they're saying, oh, these people that like Ron Paul and the Constitution, they're terrorists. They want to kill you, police. Mm-hmm. And then they even go out and provocateur things to make that true, because we're the real Americans. I mean, look, if you don't like America, then say you want global world government and you want tyranny. But don't say we're the extremist when we're following what made the country great. Continue.
One other one.
Start over with that. Okay. Give us the whole body of that.
All right. Well, first, Scalia really pushes this deal about the states are sovereign, and he said, now when the states form the federal government, and that's a key component there, the states form the federal government. So does that make the federal government our boss, or are we their boss?
My parents made me show. I guess when I'm born, I'm the feds, and all
of a sudden you're in charge.
I'm 1 year old, and I go, now I'm the boss.
Yeah, exactly. Which is absurd.
It's kind of like an out of control teenager, actually.
Yeah, and so Scalia said, though, even though we delegated some powers to the new federal government, the states retained a residuary and inviolable sovereignty. So if the states are really and truly inviolably sovereign, why don't we control our own resources, our own education?
Why don't we get rid of the 17th Amendment and bring the senators back to the states?
That's exactly correct. That's another key component of all of this. And then he goes on to say, the federal government we held may not compel the states to enact or administer a federal regulatory program. You got to remember, this is June 27, 1997. Does that sound like he's talking about Obamacare?
And carbon tax?
Where do you think Obamacare and all of this is going to be enforced? In Washington, D.C.? No. It's going to be in the state. It's going to be in Austin. It's going to be in the county. It'll be in every county, all 254 counties.
Oh, they mandate that we carry it out.
Exactly, they will. And so where can we stop it? County by county, state by state. This says that Obamacare cannot be forced upon the states. We do not have to participate. They are not our boss. So this decision says your sheriff does not have to take orders from the federal government. Let's be specific. The President of the United States cannot tell your county or your sheriff or your state what to do. Your governor, state reps, nobody. The United States Congress cannot tell your sheriff or your state what to do. If Congress and the President cannot tell your sheriff what to do or your state, then how did the EPA get that authority? How did the FDA get that authority?
Well,
how
let
did
me
the
stop
IRS
you.
get it?
How did I have an example here today in my stack where he's a boxer, he's in great shape, and he's got a prosthesis. He's only got one hand, and he went to get a TSA job, and they just said openly, "No, you're crippled."
You can't grope people with that hand.
Well, and he went on and said, "But American with civil disabilities,
yeah, right.
Americans with Disabilities Act," and they said, "We're not under that. There's no law." They say they don't need to radiation test their scanners. Mm-hmm. When under federal law you have to, and state law. They just say, "We don't care." Right. FBI can't stick their hands on your pants or in your pants without a warrant. They just do it. It's the same thing with all this. It's just an out-of-control, tyrannical power grab where they say, Americans with Disabilities Act, radiation laws, Fourth Amendment, 10th Amendment states' rights,
Second Amendment,
a federal judge just ruled, hey, we want TSA at school proms groping people. No, I'm not kidding.
Can't they wait till afterwards, like all the other boys?
Exactly. But I mean, that's one. I mean, it's just a mad power grab.
It is. It is, and I do poke fun at it because that's really the only way I can handle it. Because this stuff would drive you crazy if you let it. Because it's so out of control and it's so bass-ackwards, as you say. It is so 100% diametrically opposed to the Founding Fathers' vision that makes it scary. And it is scary. And so anyway, I've dedicated my life to making sure that there are constitutional sheriffs in this country who will stand against the tyranny of the federal government. It is the greatest protection, and it is the greatest solution. And I said, everything that you've said, that you have dedicated your life to, all of that can be stopped, sheriff by sheriff, county by county,
if the
state
people
by state.
Will reanimate the republic with their energies, with the truth.
Let me tell you where that has happened. Grant County, Oregon, Sheriff Glenn Palmer. I have on my website, sheriffmack.com, I have an article right at the top about him. He invited me out there 10 years ago to teach my Constitution class to all his department. Now, 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago, he invited me back. And I've been in touch with him ever since. I know what he's been doing.
And let me guess, he's more popular now than ever.
More popular now than ever. And let me tell you why you reminded me of this and what you just said. Because the people got working behind their sheriff and working with their sheriff to stop the tyrants. Let me tell you what this other county, before I tell you what Sheriff Palmer did. This county voted in voter referendum, got petitions and put it on the ballot, and voted to make Grant County a UN-free zone.
Beautiful.
Isn't that wonderful? And so these are people who know and understand freedom. Then, now they have a county sheriff, a constitutional sheriff, whose oath of office means something to him. He takes it seriously. And he's told the United States Forest Service, you better back off and leave my people alone. They're citing people for going out and collecting and clearing dead wood. These are people who... So
when there's a lightning strike, everything burns down.
Exactly.
If you don't clear it.
The Forest Service has created a lot more forest fires than
that's admitted
in history. Yes, then they know that. Well, the numbers are there. They can't lie. And so Sheriff Palmer got sick and tired of the Forest Service citing his people, arresting his people, sending them to federal court 6 hours away, 7 hours away in Portland. And he said, that's not going to happen anymore. You're not going to treat people like that. You're not going to shut off roads anymore, act like you own everything here, because you don't. And he wrote him a letter and said, now my intergovernmental agreement with you will not be renewed. I'm not going to sign it. And you guys are being put on notice. Now he's issued another letter to him that he's actually going to arrest them if they fail to comply with what he's doing. Now, another key component of this, the people got behind this good sheriff. And when I went there to speak at the rally, all the people showed up. There's like 600 people at the high school gym, and there's a full-page ad in the local newspaper, an entire full page, and it has 600 names on it of local citizens who support their sheriff keeping his oath, supporting the Constitution and defending freedom.
And even if the feds then try to persecute them, that persecution will let them really come together. And from what I've heard, this is spreading now.
It is.
A lot of other sheriffs aren't going all the way, but these cultures of liberty are spreading.
It's starting.
And the fires are being set, the brush fires in the minds of men and women.
Yep.
The great animating contest of liberty is now accelerating. That is so exciting. Sheriff Mack, we've got about 10 minutes left here, and I know you've had a long day. We'll let you get out of here.
I still have to get to another interview with Dr. Stan Monteith.
My goodness, what time is that?
11.
You are working hard.
So yeah, I got to be home in time to do that. But I've got plenty. It looks like we got plenty of time, and my wife's waiting out for me. And I call her the pretty little.
You can be back to
girl.
Fredericksburg in about an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'll be back plenty of time. So, but I just wanted to make sure people could get these tools. They're so extremely valuable. They're on my website. Make sure that you have a sheriff that knows and understands this book, The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. Talk to him about it. He's probably already received the book because a lot of good people have made sure that every sheriff in the country got it. But since we sent 3,100 of these out to all the sheriffs, we have new sheriffs now. Not all of them, but there's about.
They need to be knee deep in those.
But they do.
Pocket constitutions, the ruling, they need to be knee deep.
Now you notice on the ruling, this is the state flag, which answers the question you said, why do we have states? This is the autonomy that is expressed by each state. They have their own flags. So let's use them. And this is an extremely valuable tool. And let me tell you my favorite quote from this entire decision. It actually brings in what's the motto of the Obama administration and the Eric Holder Justice Department?
Their motto is ship guns into Mexico and frame the Second Amendment?
No, the other one, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yes.
Okay? Well, Scalia talks about that in here, and he says this, but the Constitution protects us from our own best intention. Do you know what happens if not every, if we get maybe 20 or 30% of sheriffs and local officials to live by that one line, one sentence, but the Constitution protects us from our own best intention. It divides power among sovereigns. All the people are sovereigns, and the states sovereign, so that we may resist the temptation to concentrate power in one location as an expedient solution to the crisis of the day.
And that's how it's always sold, and they sell it with a good packaging. But the people selling this New World Order...
And of course, they would never create that crisis either. They would never fabricate that crisis, just like Obama did with the health care debate. Oh, everybody's dying, and if we don't get this to them right now, the people are going to continue to die. And we've got to do this bailout right now, or our economy is going to go to crap.
Or there's guns in Mexico. We got to restrict the Second Amendment. By the way, I shipped them down there.
Yeah, and he has his BATF shipping them down there, and that's how ridiculous and crazy this has gotten. And so, folks, again, this extremely valuable tool. If you want to see how we avoid the crisis of the day, Scalia says the way to avoid the crisis of the day from the federal government and to stop their tyranny and their, he calls it incursions, is at the state and county level.
In closing, the banksters know that the remedy is through the states. As that checkmate on out-of-control federal behavior.
It's the fourth branch.
That's why they sold Obama as the second coming of Abraham Lincoln. And now he's saying, not just with the states, but with Congress, that he may raise the debt ceiling even if they don't.
Yeah.
That he'll launch wars, that he'll put in carbon taxes. And my final question for you, and if you've got any other final thoughts, and then I've got some final thoughts at the end here for folks watching on prisonplanet.tv. In the final equation, we know they're getting rid of posse comitatus. They're training the police, and I saw cases in Tennessee where, remember 2 years ago, it's in my film Police State 4, The Rise of FEMA, so important that be gotten out to everybody, because a lot of police are compartmentalized. They see that film, they go, oh, that's how this all interconnects.
Right.
They know the info's true, but they've never really put the pieces together. This total federalization ahead of our staged bankruptcy and financial bondage to the globalist. But all over the country, there was a case 2 years ago, and I had a state rep on, and the governor put a statement out in Tennessee. They had upwards of 20 federal agencies, Army, National Guard, MPs, BATF, FBI, TSA, federal marshals, running checkpoints, shutting down highways, searching people in 4 states. But the Tennessee governor said, they called it an exercise, but it was real. They were shutting down highways. The governor said, you can't do that. You don't have authorization. And they just said, hey, Homeland Security, National Security, we'll do it whatever we want. There's got to be a confrontation with this. What would you have done if you were one of the Tennessee sheriffs 2 years ago and there were 20 federal agencies running blockades on roads in open violation of the Bill of Rights, Constitution, but every other canon of a free society? I mean, everybody knows a hallmark of tyranny is military running checkpoints. I mean, that's martial law. What would you have done?
Well, first of all, I will hope that I would have already had them on notice before this all started, that they know they have to check with the sheriff before they come in and do that crap. Then if they don't, then you go there and you stop it. And you do stop it. And
what do they say? We have bigger guns. I guess you go call out the posse?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and hopefully you do it peacefully. And this can be done peacefully. And Chris Matthews tried to pin it on me that no, this is all going to be violent. And Time Magazine lied about me. Oh,
in the Rise of the Right, they implied me and Ron Paul are calling for violence.
Right, exactly. And I've never heard you call for that. And no one has ever heard me call for violence. There is a way to do this peacefully. The thing of it is, if the sheriff does interject himself in this situation, in this problem, if he does interpose himself on behalf of the people, he can call in the other sheriffs from the rest of the state. He can call in the posse. He's the only other person besides the governor that has the authority and power to call out the posse, the militia.
And they're afraid of this confrontation.
Of course they are.
Because we're in the right, and it's going to checkmate. I mean, folks, the TSA, no one is allowed to stick their hands down your pants without a warrant. No one's allowed to put you in microwave ovens, period. This is a joke. Major universities worldwide, including the U.S., are now listing us as one of the worst police states. We've still got our free speech to a certain extent. Right. They're trying to start to shut that down with the internet kill switch. Tyranny's coming in like a flood. We have to animate the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. We're seeing all these articles in Time and Newsweek. Constitution's bad. It caused the problems. Right. Get rid of it. This will solve the problems. We've gotten into these problems as soon as we stop following the Bill of Rights, Constitution, Declaration of Independence. Sheriff Richard Mack, thank you so much for spending time with us. Any closing comments?
Well, Alex, I'd say just the one thing you reminded me of there, we're not in trouble in this country because we follow the Constitution too strictly. Far from it. We've got to get back to that, and there's a way to do it. Sheriff by sheriff, county by county. Go to sheriffmack.com, and you can see all of this and see what I've been doing. And Alex, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate all your people here staying up late with us tonight, and thanks for having me and my wife here today.
The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have miles to go before I sleep. And what dedication. Going to drive back out to Fredericksburg, an hour and a half away, to another hour of radio on RadioLiberty.com with the great Dr. Stan Monteith. That's right. Old doctor on a cane doing 5 hours, 6 hours of radio a day. Yeah. And so dedicated. We flew out there to interview him for a film. We actually have to go back out.
Well, he was at your meeting in Santa Cruz.
But he had the flu. We flew out there. We have to go back out and do it again because he had the flu like a year ago for this eugenics film. And he would go in the bathroom, lay on the couch, and then force himself up. He could barely talk. We're like, no, we'll fly back to Texas. Don't worry about it. And he literally did that to get the word out. And it's that type of dedication and that spark and that fire of liberty. That's why we're going to win. Folks, I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. I want to thank you for supporting PrisonPlanet.tv. This is just our roundtable special report format. Starting September 1st, we're going to have a 30-minute news program at 7 p.m. Central every evening. We've upped the crew. We've upped the IT people. We're kind of working out some of the bugs tonight. I want to thank the crew for staying late. And a lot of them have been here for 16 hours today. They were here 16 hours yesterday. I'll be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. live on the radio/TV show. But this PrisonPlanet.tv and the new TV site we're going to be starting after that is really the final phases. I already have several cable networks and people that have wanted us to develop a show, but they wanted me to move to New York or move to L.A. to do these shows under their rules. I'm doing this here as a viral program that will get the truth out to everybody, and we couldn't do it without your support. So thank you for being PrisonPlanet.tv members, and if you'd like to really support us so we can continue what we're doing, buy a couple more memberships at PrisonPlanet.tv, give it to your friends and family. or spread the word about prisonplanet.tv. You can download these shows, burn them to disk, pass them out to people. We even let people with their prisonplanet.tv passcode share it with up to 5, 6 different people with that same passcode can be simultaneously logged in. As long as we can pay for the bandwidth and the crew and all this equipment, we can continue. But if we could double the amount of members at prisonplanet.tv, and I believe that's going to happen with the nightly TV show, we can really finance the reporters and the crew and fly people in and really start to expand our news organization and find other people that can work here as reporters. So hopefully I get to a position only working 9, 10, 12 hours a day. But we've got big plans here, and we've been able to do it all because of you. We reach more than 2 million people a day on the radio, more than 5 million a week. We reach more than 5 million a week with Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, more than 300 million views in the last 2.5 years on YouTube alone. We are having a huge effect, and the tyrants aren't going to be able to get away with what they're doing if we stand up. And this is a tip of the spear, so thank you for your support of PrisonPlanet.tv and Infowars.com. And whatever you do, go to SheriffMack.com and get the County Sheriff America's Last Hope and the Victory for State Sovereignty Supreme Court decision, because the remedies are there. That's why the system attacks the founders. That's why they attack the Declaration of Independence, Constitution. Lawyers, constitutionalists in other countries, philosophers, statesmen, they have looked at our system and said this was pure genius. It produced the most wealth, the most freedom. If we don't have this, then we're just more real estate and more dirt. And again, I'm Alex Jones signing off from InfoWars Special Report. We'll talk to you coming up in the next few hours. See you back at 11 a.m. Central. Thank you, Sheriff.
You bet. Thanks for having me.